thank you for making time for me today, Miss. So may I ask if you can introduce yourself before we start the interview?
Hi, my name is Veronica. I am currently doing my teaching practicum here in Malacca. I am teaching mathematics and also science.
I see. So for this interview, we will mainly focusing on language acquisition. So how many languages that you know and you can use well in a daily conversations?
In a daily conversation, I mainly use Malay and also English, but if you're asking about the languages that I can speak with my friends, I usually will speak in English and also Korean.
I see. So can you tell us all the languages that you are currently, a bit fluent in or you can speak?
I have learned how to speak French during high school. I also learned how to speak Japan, Chinese, and of course Korean. Um, yeah, I think that is all the language that I am currently a bit fluent in.
I see. Thank you. So based on the languages that you fluent in, what encouraged you to learn these languages?
I think it's simply because I am very attracted to their culture and the way their language sounds. It's very interesting and also very attracting in my opinion because it sounds, as you know, Korean sounds very different from our language Malay and also very different from uh, English because it has its own symbols. That's why I am very attracted to like learn how to use, how to speak, and also how to write the language. As for French, I learned the language because it's very similar. It's almost very similar to English, but it's still very different. It has like its own distinct way of how we pronounce the words and also how we write the words. That's why I was very attracted to learn how to speak French. And as for Japan and Chinese, it's also because of how we write the how we write each word and how we pronounce the word. That's why I choose to learn all these different language because it's just very interesting and also attractive to me.
I see. Thank you. So how did you learn and how long did it take you to learn the languages?
For English, as you know, it is in an international language that we must learn. I was attracted to the language while I was still in primary school because I listened to a lot of English songs and I just find it very interesting to learn and to speak the language. That's how I learn English, and it took me, I think, years to finally fluently speak in English and also confidently speak in English because English is not that hard, but it can be a bit confusing to some people, especially Malaysian, because it is very different, as you know. And as for the other language, the French, like Japan, Chinese, and also Korean, it took me years to learn because it's very different from all the languages that we know and we speak of. So, in learning Korean, Japan, and also Chinese, it took me, I think, a bit, I think like 6 to 7 years to finally actually learn how to speak fluently and confidently because it is very different. And as for French, it took me 5 years to actually be fluent in it.
I see.
So, yes.
So on the journey of learning these languages, do you implement the use of social media or any other platform?
Yes, I use um, in order to learn Korean, Japan, Chinese, and also French, I use Duolingo, which is very helpful. And also, of course, I made friends in Instagram, I made friends in Discord, and also Twitter, or right now we know that apps as X. So I made friends there, and it's friend that I got from all around the world, and they share the same interest with me. So we decided to learn the languages together.
I see. Thank you for sharing. So, what strategies or technique help you in the most in acquiring these languages?
The strategies that I really love using until now is just listening to songs and try to sing along with it. And then after I learn how to sing the song, how to actually pronounce each word, I would always look for the meaning of the song. So in that is how I learn how to actually speak, and also how to understand what that song is all about, and that is how I learn each languages.
I see. So, as a person who learn approximately around 6 languages, what advice will you give to someone that is trying to learn a new languages?
My advice to someone who is very interested in learning new languages is to familiarize yourself with the language, as in try to watch like lots of dramas, lots of listen to lots of songs that is in that language, and just familiarize yourself with the language. That is how I learn how to speak, and also how to understand what what each words means.
So, having the knowledge of multiple languages, how do you maintain proficiency in each languages that you acquired?
I use each languages in um, different occasion. As for my career, I usually just use Malay and also English. That is how I still keep my proficiency in each of that language. As for Japan, Korean, Chinese, and also French, I use that language when I speak to my overseas friend. That is how I keep my proficiency. I always exchange information with them in their language, and ask them about whether my pronunciation or my understanding of that word is true or not. That is how I keep my proficiency.
I see. Thank you. So, since you learn 6 languages, there must be some experience where you experience language interference. So, let me explain briefly what is language interference. Language interference is when basically your first language or your second language that you acquire, they've gotten mixed up, you know. So in Malay and English we call it Manglish sometimes. So
Yes.
what is the experience that you face in this kind of situations?
In this kind of situation, I usually it's a bit funny because I sometimes know that words in either English or Korean, but I don't know the words in Malay. So it's hard for me to like tell my students um, like what I was talking about, because I remember that word in certain language, but I don't remember that word in language that I shared with my students. So they have to be they. So it's like it's very obvious how um, knowing different language can interfere with sometimes interfere with my career. So I had to like I have to use simple words that I know and I can remember that word in Malay, so it's easier for my students to understand. That is what I usually experience. And the same goes for the other language. Sometimes I know that word in Korean, but I don't know that word in maybe English or Malay.
I see. It must be hard for you to like to maneuver your way in facing this kind of interference. Do you have any other suggestions in how to face these interferences?
In order for me to face that interference, I usually just use simple words, as I've said before. And not only that, I would always had my phone near me so that um, I can search for the words in the language that my students speak, so it's easier for me to like tell them, okay, I was talking about this actually, so
Ah,
this word means this in in this language, but I forgot, so I am so sorry, I have to use my phone inside the class. That's how I usually deal with this interference.
I see. So, has being a multilingual impacted your career or personal life in any ways? Do you have any stories that you could tell us?
There's this one moment in my class with my Form 1 student. I was talking about how I've learned like a lot of language in all of my 24 years of living in this world. So I was telling them, okay, I remember certain words in Korean like this and that, but then I don't really remember what's that word, what's that word. I was looking at them like they know the answer and they were looking at me like, what are you talking about, miss? We don't understand what you're talking about. And I'm like, oh, did I speak did I speak a language that these kids don't know? But in uh, as far as as far as I've teach them, there's not has been any impact on my career because it's all just them trying to know about me better. So in while I was teaching them, I strictly only use Malay and also English so that it won't confuse my student. That is how being a multilingual actually has impacted my career. There's not really any significant um, what's the word any significant interference, but sometimes it can be confusing for both my students and me.
I see. So, do you think knowing multiple languages changes the way you think or perceive the world?
In my opinion, it does change how I perceive the world because um, in learning a new language, you also, as I've said before, you also kind of dived into their culture, into other people's culture. That is how my view of that country or people around that country change because by learning their language and understanding what they are talking about in either um, any of the shows that I've watched or any of the people that I've met and talked with, um, learning their language sometimes just helps you understand them better. So when you understand someone better, it is easier for you to connect with them, to converse with them, and to also understand them the way they think. It also affect the way I think about them because I know every single words that they said. I understand what they are talking about, and I can I can help them with whatever they need help with because, as you know, Malaysia, there's a lot of Korean people in Malaysia, and sometimes when I'm in either in Sabah or in Kuala Lumpur, I would like meet certain Koreans that will go up to me and just ask me for directions, but they don't know the exact word in English, so they have to like mix it up with a little bit of Korean, and knowing Korean helps me a lot in understanding what they are actually asking about. So instead of thinking that they are rude for rude or just um, very helpless in this country. Like um, it helps me to understand that they are just here to, look around Malaysia, to know Malaysia better. The same goes with us. If we go to other country, we would always use the uh, the international language, which is English. But sometimes people in that country don't really have the best proficiency in English. So it's knowing their language can help us to communicate with them better.
I see. So thank you for making your time today. I appreciate all the answered questions. So hopefully we'll be meeting soon for maybe another interview. All right. So thank you. Have a nice day.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you for joining my interview today. Um, First, before we start our interview, may I ask if you can introduce yourself first?
So, okay, let's continue. So, thank you. So, my name is Joshua Dawalis, currently finishing my internship and waiting for graduation. A TASO student like you as well. And yeah, what else? I think that's it.
So today we'll be doing interview about second language acquisition. So what I want to know is how many languages that you know and can use well in everyday conversation.
So, if you talk about languages that I know, there will be around like six. So it's like the English, Malay, Chinese, then three mother tongues, which is Murut, Lundai, Lun Bawang, and another one would be a little bit of Hokkien, Cantonese, like that. They are the Chinese dialect. But if you talk about languages that I use for everyday conversation, would be just English, Malay, Chinese. Sometimes if I meet family members from my mother or from my father's side, we speak Murut, and sometimes if we go back to Sarawak, we speak Lun Bawang.
I see. Thank you. So can you tell um all the languages that you know? It's around seven languages, right? So which languages that
Six.
you are more confident in, that you are most definitely fluent in?
So definitely English is first. Second would be Mandarin Chinese, and third would be Malay. The mother tongue, just recently learned about that, so not very fluent or very confident in that. Why I say I'm quite fluent in Chinese more than in Malay, it's because I started out. My family is a strong English speakers, so we rarely use Malay there. But when I moved to public school, that is where I started to forced to learn Malay.
I
So
see.
English first, Chinese second, then Malay.
All right. So what encouraged you to learn multiple languages in your life, you know?
Um, One encouragement would be because for survival purposes, especially as you know that when you are trying to look for a job or when you try to communicate with people, it's very important to learn, especially Chinese when you talk about business. So when you're like very fluent in Chinese, it's well to communicate for business purposes. But the mother tongues are quite important to me as well because they are like my identity, so it's important to learn them. Even though my grandparents would get mad of how ruined or how bad my slang, orang mulut cakap slang putih, begitu they will say. But it's the identity that is very important that encourages me to learn.
Thank you. That is a good advice, you know. So, how did you learn all the languages that you know?
Well, English and Chinese, it is because Chinese educated. So because Chinese school, you're forced to learn Chinese, whereas Malay is also because it's bahasa negara, bangsa. But then for Murut and Lun Bawang, the way I learn them is community. I People would say family, but since not most of my family can speak them, and I don't always speak, I don't always get to meet my family members, so I will always mix myself with the community. Like in Keningau, there's a lot of Murut people. So the Murut community there is very strong. So when you are in the community itself, you get to learn those language and the terms that they use.
I see. So, how long for each languages that you know? How long that did it take you to be so fluent in it?
English, I would say it's a lifetime. There is no shortcut.
I
Okay,
agree.
even right now, if you talk to me, if you were to ask me how's my English right now, I would say there is still a little improvement needed. Chinese is the same thing. Malay is the same thing. But that's why, like, sometimes I believe that there is no definite time to learn a specific language,
Mm-hmm.
because you may say that you know, but then when you meet someone who lives and breathes in that language, you will say, okay, I don't think it's enough. I still need to learn more. That's why.
Yes. Yeah, I see. So, do you implement the use of social media to you learning the languages?
Yes, very much so. When it comes to for mother tongue, there is not that much exposure. The for Dusun, yes, we're quite strong, but if Murut and Lun Bawang, not so. But for Chinese, very much influence. You have TikTok, you have Douyin, and then you have like drama, and then people will always post them. So it's quite influenced. And now with the special features in some certain social media where you can actually Google translate it, so it actually helps in the learning process. That's one of it.
Do you use Duolingo by any chance?
No,
No.
no.
Okay. So, I think you already mentioned this briefly before, but I need to know your strategy or your technique in helping you. What helped you the most in acquiring these languages?
Well, number one would be have a strong community. When I mean by a strong community, in a sense that where the environment that you live and breathe and speaks in that language. In that way, not only you will get used to it, it's hard at first, but when you get used to it, you're suddenly fluent in it. So with that strong community sense, it helps to actually learn the language. Another one is that no direct translation. There is no such thing as direct translation.
Yes.
The reason is because that sometimes when you direct translate, especially when you're trying to learn it in English or in Malay, the tata bahasa or the grammar doesn't make sense. So when you try to learn the language in the sense that you're trying to learn its grammar first, is actually the wrong way, where you're supposed to learn the terms first. When you understand the terms, and then you will be fluent in it. The last one would be internalization. When I mean by internalization, I mean by you internalize the language or the terms that use, meaning that when you learn the language, you get to picture how it means. For example, if people were to say hua is flower. So people can say, okay, it's easy because we've seen flower before. But when it comes to advanced terms, you have to internalize it so that you can picture and have a sense of, okay, I think I can get used with this term, like that.
I see. That is a good way on explaining the techniques that you use. So, as a person, for example, me, if I want to learn a language, what advice would you give me?
If you want to try learning a new language, number one would be try know the community. I've been stressing this a lot, but having that community makes a big difference. Meaning but then it doesn't mean that you have to look for the community. Maybe you can create that community amongst yourself. Let's say you and your friend you want to learn a Korean language, and then you have some friends that want to learn Korean. So you can create that community amongst you and your friends to always try to speak Korean when you meet each other. So that is one of the strategies. And then another best strategy would be internalizing. Like I said just now, you can internalize it when you try to vision something. And then another thing is that try to get used with the language. Try to get used to it, because when you yourself get used to the language, even though you can't speak it, but when you listen to it, you can understand. So that's are a few ways I could say when you're trying to learn a new language.
So you have seven languages that you know. So how do you maintain proficiency in all the languages?
Find friends, find people, find ways to keep talking to it. Like my mother tongue, I always try to talk with my parents, and then they will say they will fix it. But for like Hakka, for Cantonese, for Hokkien, find friends. Like in my workplace, right currently in my workplace right now, I have friends who speak Cantonese. I have friends who speak Hakka. So sometimes I will always use that terms, and then sometimes, but not always fluently speak it. But let's say if you want to just have fun with it, have someone to talk with. The more you communicate with someone, the more you get used to it.
So I see. So community is important for someone to maintain proficiency in the languages, right? So have you ever experienced language interference? And
Um, mhm.
what are your
And what?
actions in facing those interference?
May I understand what interference means? What do you mean by interference?
Because sometimes a person that speak multiple languages all at once, when they meet another person that is multilingual as well, you tend to mix those languages, like
Mm-hmm.
the slang, put some word inside this in English, for example. So in this, it tends to break your proficiency level. So
Mm-hmm.
that is what I meant by interference in the languages.
One of the way to actually help out is that um, you try your best when you're talking with somebody who's multilingual. You try your best to actually have the same view, same the point of view. Meaning, in a sense, like you're trying to speak in English, so you yourself have that point of view or have that goal to like, okay, I want to speak fully in English. Same goes with your friend. So if that mixed up happens, you cannot influence your friend. So what you can do is just keep on talking. Like for example, if you were to speak Manglish with me, and
Mm.
then I say I want to fix my English. So no matter how tempted I am to speak Manglish with you, I will always try my best to always speak in English, like fully proper English, like that.
I see. So proper understanding in what kind of languages used to communicate is one of the way.
Proper understanding and as well as discipline.
I
The
see.
discipline in the brain. So that's why I say when you're tempted to mix, that's where the discipline comes. That's one of it.
Right. So I think you already mentioned just now that the languages that you know impact you in a way. For example, in the business wise, Chinese is important, right? So can you tell me one memorable moment that
Mhm.
impact your life, in your personal life, like.
So I have two, but I'll share both different from my working experience and from outside working experience. So let's have an outside working experience. So one of the experiences is that when we were going, my friends and I, we were going out enjoying enjoying the pulau, the island, and then there was this person who cannot speak proper English and trying to ask the tourist for guide, but the tourist cannot speak Chinese. So I offer myself to help. So I offer myself, say, come, can I help translate for you? And then we can help each other to communicate. So when I become the translator for those both, the tourist was so like understanding and then knowing the problem. Why can't I do this? Why can't I do that? And then it makes the communication easy. And after that, the tourist himself gave a small gift, which is 50 ringgit. So
Ooh.
that's one good thing. Whereas when you talk about working experience, well, in the firm that I work with, we always need someone to translate things. So my job was always to translate English to Malay, Malay to English. But when you know an extra language, which is Chinese, and then because of my additional knowledge of knowing that language, I was given a raise or higher position because of that. So not only it helps you to communicate well in your business purposes, but then when the person can see that you have the potential or that extra gift that you have, for sure they will use you in another way, and maybe they will lift you to another position.
I
Ah.
see. That's a good memory, you know. So, for the last questions, do you think knowing multiple languages change the way you think or perceive life?
Yes, very much so. Because not only when you talk about talking, when you know multiple language, you know the lives of that language. You know the society and you know how each languages live. You know how the English people live. You know how the Malay people live. You will also know how the Chinese people live. When you know the society behind the language that you speak with or you know about it, you have an open mind about how the world works. I give an example where as Malaysians, we always think that okay, as Malaysians, you always think that okay, orang Melayu will know that the culture of Malay, the Malay culture. But when you know Chinese society and you know the discipline behind the Chinese moral, the 弟子规, the philosophy, the Chinese philosophy, so it helps you to open up and to learn and to see some things. And then sometimes certain terms is not there different languages perceive differently. For example, if you know Korean, you always think that okay, beautiful must always be beautiful, must always be skinny. But then when you know Chinese, Chinese have these terms where there are places where it's supposed to be big, there are places where it's supposed to be small.
Mm,
So it's supposed to show where you don't have to be skinny to be beautiful. Some places are meant to be big, some places are meant to be small. So that's how, when you know that certain languages have their society or have their philosophy behind it, it opens up your eye to see those things.
I see. So, that is all for this interview.
Yes.
Thank you, Jeho, for making time to do this interview. Say hi to Miss Lulu.
Hi, Miss Lulu.
All right. Arigato.